All right, folks, welcome to another conversation here in the lounge. And today I have the privilege of talking with Mr. Jim Garrison, running for City Council at-large seat 1. And it's a little funny story how this conversation came about. We interviewed Dr. Taha Ansari, who's also running for the seat, on the McKinney podcast. And we had no intention of talking about the election.
Right.
We had, I talked to Taha before the interview. I was like, this is going to drop after Election Day, so we don't really need to talk about any of that. But as the conversation went around, the election naturally came up. So Fred and I, in the middle of that interview, were like, maybe we should move these things around and have this interview drop. And so as soon as we made that decision, of course, I had to reach out to everybody else in the race, be like, hey, we weren't planning on this, but this is how it happened. So I'm perfectly happy to make time to record with each of you if you so choose. And what do you know? Jim Garrison is the only one who took me up on the offer so far.
Immediately.
Yeah. And it was like, whoa, okay, that was fast. Cool, let's get this thing recorded then.
Right.
So Jim Garrison, welcome to our little studio here.
Thanks for taking out time to do this. I know you guys are busy, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is so important though. I mean, and I took some heat for saying it because it's like, oh my gosh, it's such a tired talking point, but this is easily the most important municipal election in McKinney's history because we're at a crossroads right now.
I agree. And it is one of those things that you hate to use those words. It's this critical election. But it is, and just for everything you just said, it's a critical point for McKinney, its growth, the future, everything. So
Well, the fact that we have mayor up for election, and then we have 3 city council seats. That's 4 out of the 7 seats on council that are up for election, which is a controlling interest of what happens in our city. And you look back to 8 years of Brian Loftmiller as mayor, 8 years of George Fuller as mayor, and there's obviously some different permutations of city council in those 16 years in our city. But we're getting ready to have a new mayor and 3 new council members, Justin Bellers doesn't have an opposition, which is a different story entirely. Like, is there nobody in District 1 to run? I mean, I like Justin, I'm a big fan of his, but is nobody gonna run against him? Come on, like we've got to do better there.
Well, yeah, I think it's a reflection on perhaps him doing a good job, and I think the folks over there like the way he's taking care of business.
I agree. Yeah. To let the record show, if I had a vote in District 1, Justin Beller has done a great job. But we're not here to talk about him. We're here to talk about Jim Garrison. We've got some topics. We're going to start with the amphitheater and get your take on the situation and what a Jim Garrison city councilman would be doing in these situations. So first off, let's talk about the amphitheater.
Okay.
What's your take on that project? Is it a positive for the city? Is it a negative for the city? Where do you land on that?
Sure. I've been following this project since probably April of last year. The minute they started having the public hearings at City Hall about moving forward with this, I was at those hearings. And it's not. It sounds like it's legal, but it's a hearing. It's just a public meeting, is what it was. And I got to meet the developers, the folks from Venue, and the project just intrigued me. And so I thought, you know what, I know they've got the one that they're building up in Colorado Springs. So flew up there. I wanted to go see it. I wanted to see it in person. I wanted to see the construction. I wanted to see the layout. I wanted to see it in operation and see if it was going to be a good fit for McKinney. So I was actually there on the opening night, and it was One Republic was the band. And
opening night?
That was opening night.
Oh, man.
I was there, but it was deliberate. I wanted to see what it was going to be like there, if they staffed the facility properly, if the security was there, how ingress and egress worked, the noise. I wanted to see what they had going on there because it is surrounded by apartments and housing.
And it's right there on I-25 north of town.
Yeah, you've done your homework, yes.
Yeah, we're going in June to
very good.
see it as well. Yeah.
Right, okay, very good. So that night was fun. The audio system is insane. It's crazy good, and it's so high tech. A lot of folks don't know it, but you can actually focus sound waves to pinpoint it and keep that sound within the confines of the amphitheater. And they used that technology. So there were a couple of things for opening night. So I went back the next month to see another performance, another concert.
So they get some King Siren
Oh my gosh, like overnight. And that was one of the things that was impressed me with their public hearing here in McKinney. They couldn't stress enough that they wanted to be good neighbors. It wasn't a one and done, here we're gonna build it and we're out of here kind of a thing. It's these folks they mean business. It's a top drawer project. The venue is going to be the flagship concert venue for not just McKinney, but pretty much North Texas. I mean, 20,000 folks. It's going to beat Dos Equis. That's very antiquated, old technology over there. It's just a good thing. And then flash forward to just a couple of nights ago, they were back in town and they had another public meeting, if you will. It was just a delivery of information. It's over at the Sheraton right across the street from where the amphitheater is going to be. And there was about north of 100 folks there. And there were some homeowners, there were some investors there. There was a pretty good cross-section of a lot of folks. So there was about a 30-minute presentation, covered everything. And then they did open it up to Q&A.
Which is always interesting. You never know how live audience Q&A is going to be.
Well, and you know you've got some folks out there that may not be on board with the project, so I give them nothing but credit for opening it to
Fearless.
a live.
Absolutely fearless.
It was.
Love it.
And so, like I said, there's about 100 people there. There was, I bet maybe 10, 12 questions. And you know how that, after they answer all the questions, is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? Nobody. So it was interesting, the line of questioning that they had. The big takeaway was from 3 different people at 3 different times, how is the venue with 20,000 people sitting there going to impact my cell phone usage, my cellular connection at my house? I just live right here, my Wi-Fi. That was the big concern. It was brought up 3 times. And the venue, the folks had an answer. There's a system called DAS, and it's an antenna system. And what they do is they install it, and it's almost invisible. You can't even see it. It's kind of built into the structure itself. All the carriers can now plug into this thing. This is a permanent install. It's not a temporary thing. And so the folks from Venue said, you know what? He says, not only is your cell service not going to decline, you're probably going to have better cell service than you've ever had in your life now, just because of that. A couple of questions were brought up as far as ingress and egress, getting in and out. That was brief, and their answer, Venue's answer, took care of it. Their folks weren't pushing back, and they were glad with the answers.
One of the things, full transparency, I've been plugged in with this thing for over a year now. My wife and I, and actually for our company Riskwell, we got a fire pit suite, and we've been at most of the meetings. We've seen the noise impact studies and traffic impact and whatnot. One of the things I thought was really interesting is they went through the initial round of studies and then determined through public feedback and the study that they needed additional dampening structures on the facility. So they ended up adding in, with their engineers, they went back to the actual architectural renderings of the facility and put up 2 additional dampening walls to prevent noise spillover into the adjacent neighborhood, which I thought was really interesting to see developers that not just listen, but they also care enough to change the architecture.
And to your point, so they had that public hearing. They had night 1 of the public hearing at City Hall, and they heard the concerns from the potential neighbors and houses and businesses around there. In 24 hours, like what you just said, they went back to the drawing board. In 24 hours, got it redone, committed another $1.5 million to do exactly what you're talking about. They responded that quickly to people's concerns.
Now, one of the biggest detractors that people have is the economics of the situation, how they don't like that the city gave away what is potentially a 9-figure sum. A little more than $100 million worth of tax incentives and rebates and whatnot. It's not, just so people understand, this is not money leaving the city's coffers. No one is giving money to a developer up front. It's an incentive via a tax rebate or some sort of, give back over time. How do you feel about these large capital projects where MEDC, MCDC, through the city, works with private developers to make these sort of big things happen? What's your take on the economics of that and the stewardship of council and making those kind of decisions?
Now, this is a good move, and all the incentives that are out there are actually performance incentives. They don't get them up front. So the venue, the developer, they have to perform. They've got to build, they got to do what they said they're going to do, and then you get the incentive. So there's nothing in advance that you're going to get. You got to take care of business, and then we'll take care of business. And the thing about the amphitheater is it's going to be an anchor for other development. It's going to be an anchor for restaurants. It's going to be an anchor for storefront, brick and mortar stores, retail, all kinds of things. And that's exactly what I saw when I flew up to Colorado Springs. all the satellite businesses that have come just because of that anchor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth it. You just have to make smart moves like that, and it's a good one. And the development that we're going to see is going to be top drawer. There's nothing third world about this at all. This is going to be awesome.
Perfect example. The Sheraton Hotel has already announced they're planning on building their second tower to accommodate the needs of the venue to get additional rooms, because obviously you and I both know better than most, there's an alarming lack of hospitality capacity in McKinney.
Especially of that size.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so switching gears now. You are the only candidate in maybe any of these races that has come out vigorously in support of the expansion of McKinney National Airport, TKI. Tell me about your thoughts there. Why are you so enthusiastic about supporting the passenger terminal at the airport, and what's your reasoning for that?
Sure. I'm going to have to draw upon my experience as being previous council member over in Coppell. While I was over there, I was also on the ad hoc committee for the DFW airport expansion. So I recognize what numbers look like to an airport. I recognize what you can do. You can have a seat at the table and kind of guide that project a little bit. I've just done my homework in regards to the airport, not in just my race, but pretty much all the other races. I'm sad to say I don't think everybody's done their homework like they should have. And there's so much paperwork out there, and folks are saying, I haven't seen anything yet. All you got to do is take a look at the TERS 2 financial report that came out in April. It shows clearly that the airport is having a tremendous economic impact on the city. Right now, that impact is in the form of cargo and general aviation. A lot of folks don't know that if you accept any kind of funding from the government, and we do, it's FAA for the airport, you've kind of given away the ability to decline what goes on out there. Any aeronautical project, you pretty much have to put the green light on and let it go. Cargo is the big thing out there right now. You got Amazon out there, you got Encore, you got Raytheon, a couple of others, and the general aviation is good. The cargo is getting really strong just because it's a big distribution hub out there. What we need to do is get some passenger service in there and kind of slow down the cargo just a little bit, because we're going to need to put like the passenger jets in the hangars out there. You get property taxes off of that, just that jet sitting there. So that's kind of a plus. 12 years ago, the airport was a liability. It actually did require some funding from the city just to get by. So then you get, like I said, the companies like Encore, Raytheon, and Amazon moving in, Toyota, and all of a sudden we went from a liability, now we're making $58 million a year, just overnight pretty much. Flash forward to today, we're getting about $300 million a year on economic impact just from the airport. You bring in 3 planes a day for passenger service, we're going to go right up to almost $1 billion a year. And a lot of folks say, oh my gosh, what about the congestion? What about the traffic, the air noise, the pollution, all stuff like that? Right now, we've got 400 operations a day at TKI, and an operation is defined as either an arrival or a departure. So we've got 400 a day. If we bring in passenger service, we're going to go from 400 to 406. That's it.
So I did a little bit of digging on FlightAware, which tracks all the incoming and outgoing. And can you help me understand where this 400 number comes from? Because I went back and looked at days and weeks and whatnot. And it looks like it's closer to 200 when you track arrivals and departures. Am I missing something there?
It depends on how somebody's looked at it. Sometimes they'll say like the 200 if they're only counting an arrival or a
departure,
or whatever. But they do call it an operation. So whether you're taking off or landing, it is an operation. I did triple check on that because I'm seeing some different numbers here. And I think it's just a matter of what somebody's interpreting an operation as.
Fair enough. At the end of the day, I think the biggest concern that people have is, you touched on it, noise and traffic and environmental impact from fuel expenditures and whatnot. I think a lot of people might be surprised to know that 737s are already landing at TKI. Not every day, but most days, 737 is either landing or taking off. and there's not a massive outcry.
Yeah.
No species are being eradicated
Right.
on the
Yeah.
the final
Right.
approach vectors.
Well, and the other thing about passenger service and cargo, and this gets back to having that seat at the table and kind of driving that a little bit. Passenger service is kind of a finite part of the day.
Yeah.
It's not 24/7. Cargo is 24/7. And if anybody's concerned about pollution, congestion, all like that, cargo 24/7. They're thinking about the planes. They're not even thinking about the 18-wheelers that have to be going in and out of there to get the cargo out of there, coming through McKinney, going through
Last
every
time I
place.
checked, a pickup truck or a Suburban is not nearly as disruptive as an 18-wheeler or a flatbed
Right.
truck with a whole bunch of stuff loaded onto it,
Right.
pallets and whatnot.
Yep.
So,
And like I said, cargo's good. It's making us some serious money right now. We need to bring in passenger just to flatline it just a little bit.
so if we bring in passenger service, and this is an argument that I've seen a couple of times on some of the Facebook groups that I'm involved in, a lot of folks have said, well, hold on a second. Cargo is usually during the night hours. Passenger service is usually during the day hours. So if we build a passenger terminal, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to prevent any cargo operations, because most of those cargo operations are going to happen at night anyway. What's your take on that?
To me, cargo is 24/7. It just is, especially with somebody like an Amazon, where you get that overnight delivery. Those folks aren't waiting, like, okay, we can only fly at night. They're moving planes, they're moving stuff, they're moving everything all the time. So, but you bring in that passenger service, and the thing is, there's only so much airspace. So that's one thing I hear some folks say, well, we can just go to Love Field or DFW. Okay, well, you can expand that airport, but you can only put so many planes up in the air at a
Yeah.
time. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. We've got the airspace just because of what we got going on over there. The passenger thing is just a good fit. It just is.
Okay. Let's talk about public safety, not just police, but also, fire and, EMT and paramedics and whatnot. What would you be championing and prioritizing on council with regards to public safety in those four departments that I just mentioned? What can we expect from Jim Garrison on council in regards to public safety in McKinney?
Sure. I think it's going to be looking down the road, not just tomorrow, but for the next council and the next council. It's going to be projects like the amphitheater that we need to embrace, because we're going to need that money to take care of public safety issues and be able to attract and retain the best of the best. And that's not even just fire or law enforcement and public safety folks, but it's even city staff. We are in constant competition with not just every city in the DFW Metroplex, but pretty much coast to coast.
Yeah.
We're everybody's wanting the best of the best, and so you have to be able to attract those folks. You have to be competitive on the salaries that you offer these folks and the benefits packages, because the council is one thing, and it's been often said that the council was like riding a bike. The council are the ones driving, but it's the city staff, it's the city folks that are doing the pedaling and making it happen.
Yep.
So
I've heard that same analogy.
It is, and it is actually what I would believe it is. It's kind of, here, let's go this way.
Yep.
Okay, then they're pedaling to get you there.
So we had the privilege of interviewing Chief Ellenberg from McKinney Police Department a few weeks ago on the McKinney podcast.
Right.
And one of the things that he brought up is that at that time, and I don't know how much it's changed in the last few weeks, but McKinney is roughly 30 officers understaffed on the police force.
Right.
How do you suggest we make the PD more attractive to get the right talent in?
I don't know if we need to make it more attractive. I think we are pretty attractive. It's just the supply and demand. I think it's just hard getting people to move from their existing department. When I was talking to some of the law enforcement guys, they said that once you get into a department, it's pretty hard to get somebody to move out, because I know what I'm doing here. I know these folks. I know this program. Then you're going to the unknown, and so that's why you really have to keep up with the good incentives and good payroll and benefits just to attract somebody to get out of where they are right now. But McKinney's got a very attractive plan altogether. They really do. And that was one of the things I was also talking about to law enforcement. And they said that they were kind of joking, but they said, you know what, even if I had to take a little bit of a pay cut, I would stay here just because of the culture.
Yeah.
I love the community. I love the way they like us. and, I love my family being here. So
Yeah.
McKinney's got a pretty good, favorable view as far as law enforcement.
And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that you, as a candidate for city council, it's got to be really attractive for you to know that we have someone like Paul Grimes as city
Oh, gosh,
manager
yes.
and Chief Ellenberg
Yeah.
as the leader of the police department. Like having those kind of all-star folks in really key positions, that makes serving on council a lot more attractive, doesn't it?
It does. And once again, going back to when I was on city council in Coppell, we got to hire the city manager then. And it's rare that while you're serving on council, you get to do that because that is a huge, huge thing. That will forever impact the city for decades. It
Yeah.
will. It's not just we'll hire him, everything will be great. We spent, I bet, over a year just looking for the person we ultimately hired, and I'll be darned, James was there for 23 years.
Love it.
So yeah, so I'm familiar with the city managers, Mr. Grimes. These guys are rock stars.
So we're going to talk about traffic for just a second before we get into your experience on Coppell City Council, because that definitely plays in to your value proposition to the people of McKinney on why they should choose Jim Garrison over one of your opponents. What do we do about traffic? You know, there's more and more people moving to McKinney every single month. I'm not a realtor, I don't have those statistics, but I sure feel it when I drive around the city. How does Jim Garrison, as city councilman, help with the traffic problem? What ideas, what programs do you support that are going to help us get back in front of the traffic situation?
Sure. I'd have to give a tip of the hat to the current council, the current administration. They actually did a traffic study and a street study to determine all that stuff as far as what needs to be done. So they've, El Dorado's a good example, which we're right here on El Dorado.
Yep.
$9.2 million is going to be spent on improvement of El Dorado. And El Dorado is a thoroughfare, just like Virginia is. And that's going to be a tough go, because it's going to disrupt things a little bit, but it's the price you're going to have to pay for taking care of the future.
Yep.
So there's that. I do like the study that the city did. It's a good one, and it showed where they need to spend some money on improvements and street widening and things like that. But you can also embrace some of the technology. There's a couple of companies that do what's called smart lights. And it's interesting as I don't know what. Everybody says, oh, you can program the lights to do this and do that. Well, that's fine, but their technology goes way above and beyond that. They've actually got sensors at every light. And what it does, it does a real-time analysis all the time, 24/7. And the system will know, okay, well, from 5:05 to 5:15, it's everything's going east-west, and so the traffic lights change accordingly to just keep traffic moving at that pace based on the speed that everybody's going. So I mean, you've been there before when you're driving down the street and you're going, dang, I'm hitting every light good here.
Yeah.
And that's luck. That's luck. But to have this kind of technology is insane. There's a company out there, I think it's called Movision, and they're actually international, and they're well known for that kind of technology. And I don't know where the city is right now if they're looking at something like that, but that is exactly what you need to do to keep things moving quickly and efficiently, especially when it comes to just pollution and just people needing to get from point A to point B.
So you mean with the smart lights, the most annoying thing ever when you're driving, when you're sitting there alone at a red light, you're looking left, you're looking right, you're looking across, you're looking behind, like there's nobody at the intersection, but you're still sitting there for 2 minutes waiting for the light to turn green. That sort of thing would be less likely to happen, huh?
It would be almost impossible to happen. Like I said, I followed these folks, and their technology is just incredibly high tech. It
Love
just
it.
is, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into Coppell, because I'm looking at your history, your resume, and full transparency, my wife and I have already voted, so our votes are cast. You're the only candidate who has already served on council. And it wasn't just any council tenure, it was in Coppell in the early 90s. And for those folks that don't know, and I'll just break the fourth wall and look right here at the camera, Coppell in the early 90s is very, very similar to McKinney in this current chapter. Ridiculously high growth. Very hard to keep pace with infrastructure keeping up with the growth. Coppell in 2025 is fully built out. It's landlocked. It is what it is. Coppell now versus Coppell almost 30 years ago, very different story. You were on council during some radical growth, huge infrastructure challenges. How does that previous experience serve you well and give the voters a reason to pick Jim Garrison? Because you've already been there. You've already done that. You've seen what it takes to survive extreme growth.
Right. Well, as you pointed out, Coppell was a small town back then, but what was fun is you knew what the ultimate growth was going to look like. You knew it was going to be about 50,000 when it was all said and done. One of the fun things about Coppell is just 2 weeks ago, Coppell was recognized as being one of the top 10 places to live in the United States. And I would like to think that maybe the council that I was on had a little bit to do with that. Some of the choices you make, and I think that's probably the biggest thing about a council position or any elected position in the city. The choices, the decisions you're making are not just going to affect while you're on, on your term. These things are going to be affecting the city forever and ever. And you get to a project like the amphitheater. That's going to forever change what McKinney looks like, and in a good way. But you have to have that vision, and I think that's what I learned most in Coppell was this isn't just a decision that's going to go away tomorrow. This is going to affect and impact everything from forever and ever. And I learned that, and you have to weigh every decision like this is going to impact everybody, families, city staff forever and ever. And I learned that, and a lot of folks don't think they did. So,
okay,
if that made any sense.
I got your permission to ask this question because it's a little bit touchy. We had the privilege of interviewing all of the candidates for council on stage at a debate a few weeks ago, and Allison and Elizabeth, Fred and I were on the moderators, and Allison and Elizabeth helped organize. And one of the things that Allison and I both recognized was, on that stage, you had the most energy, the most enthusiasm of anybody there. Like, you take the words that you spoke out and just take your nonverbals and your level of energy, and just the vivacity that you seem to approach this with. And then I come to find out you're the oldest candidate in any of these races by a few years. And yet somehow you have what appears to be the most energy and excitement of any of the candidates that I've spoken to personally. How is that? How are you as full of zest as you are at the age of 67, where you're just still going full throttle?
I'm gonna have to give credit to Dad. I learned from him. He was a volunteer guy. He got involved in the community, and the biggest thing he ever taught me was don't sweat the small stuff or the big stuff, because it doesn't matter, and I don't. I think I've been able to put things in perspective, what I should be taking care of, concerned about, and what I should just like that. I can't control it. I got no impact there, and I just having been a small business owner, I found a long time ago that being positive and having a smile on your face goes a lot further than the opposite. I think in my business. It's one of those things where it's production. We do audio video production and corporate meetings, and I think if a client ever sees you not happy, they're going like, okay, something's wrong.
Yeah.
and I don't need anybody thinking something's wrong.
Right.
So, and it's not an act. I mean, I'm just a happy guy. So
I love it. Yeah, take the politics out of it. You want your representatives to be full of energy and enthusiasm for the work that they're doing, because it's hard. I mean, you're probably spending at least 20 hours a week in a typical week doing something council related. And whether you're in meetings or work sessions or meeting with constituents or actually doing, a council meeting twice a month you probably spend 6 or 7 hours a month just in actual public-facing meetings as a councilman.
Yeah, and that's if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
You can't phone this in. You've got to show up. You got to be present. You got to engage.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's some folks that just go to the meeting and they're done. I owe more to my community than that. I need to do the research, the homework, and meet with them. What's interesting is right now is early voting. It's going on. And I'm standing out there at the polls from beginning to end. And it's interesting as you're in campaign mode and somebody will walk up to you and you tell them a little bit of your history. And I mentioned to some folks that I'm on Building and Standards Commission here in McKinney. And she goes, no way. I said, yeah. I said, what? She says, I've got a problem. And so I said, okay, well, what do you got? And so she told me, and I said, here's my phone number. And I gave her my phone number. I said, here, send me the pictures of what you're talking about. I said, we'll see what we can do. But to me, that's how you do it. That's how you represent the folks, is give them your phone number and let's talk. Let's get something done here.
you know, I've had the privilege to be on Board of Adjustments, which serves as the appeals board for
Oh, yeah.
planning and zoning. And some of the stuff that we've been involved in, like, you can just see it on people's faces. Like, it is deeply personal to these folks.
Sure.
Now, I obviously haven't, you know, run for office. That's probably a decade off, if I ever run for office. But being in those boards and commissions conversations and seeing how the conversations, the decisions that boards and commissions make have real impact on people's lives. It's just an incredibly important decision that folks have.
Yep.
Jim, as we wrap this thing up, I want to give you the opportunity to finish up our conversation here. What is the message you want to leave for the voters of McKinney? And as an at-large councilman, you represent the totality of the city of McKinney. It's not one of the 4 districts. You represent everybody. What's the message you want to leave them
Sure.
for? And feel free to look right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, to your point, yeah, the at-large position is almost a mayor 2.0. You do represent every single person in McKinney, and I pledge to do just that. I don't care where you live, whatever's going on. Give me a call. I will take care of business. I will. I'm currently also president of El Dorado 2 HOA. We've got 742 families there. Every one of them has access to me anytime. They'll knock on my door, and I welcome it.
Oh, I bet they will.
They do, and I welcome. But here's the good thing: we're the friendly HOA. we're nice. We're not foreclosing on houses and stuff.
Oh, no.
But I think, as we've already touched on, we've got so many projects coming up that are breaking ground right now, and this is not a time for on-the-job training. This election takes place on May 3rd, and it's very possible we're going to be looking at a runoff that'll take us into June 7th.
Yeah.
So June 7th, the airport expansion is going to be pretty much underway. They've already broken ground on the amphitheater. I don't know if you've noticed, but they got the fence up, and they're already starting to grate. And by the time this next group of folks get in office, the council and the mayor, these projects are going to be underway. You need to be ready to go to work. You've got to come in ready to know what you're doing. This is not going to be a time where, okay, for the first year I'm going to learn stuff. No, it's that important. These are critical projects that, like I've already said, are going to forever change what the city looks like. And this is in a good way, but you need to have somebody driving that car that knows what they're doing.
Awesome. Glad we could spend some time together. Folks, I'm James Jenkins, representing the McKinney Podcast. Fred couldn't be here today for scheduling reasons because this happened really quickly. It came together in 24 hours.
Once again, I appreciate that. I appreciate the email, and like I said, I jumped on it because
Yeah.
first of all, I like the way you do your interviews. They're awesome, and I know you're a busy guy, but thank you for that.
Okay, folks, the most important thing is that you take action from this video. Get out and vote. Make sure your friends are voting, your neighbors are voting. You'll notice that I'm not advocating for any one person in this video. The most important thing is that you are choosing the candidates that best align with your values and your vision for the way that you want your city to be. And Jim Garrison, thanks for your time today, man.
Thank you again. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thanks.